Have you ever felt like giving up too soon just because of small losses? Today, through the story of a neighbor's cat that disappeared in Denmark, you'll see how little losses can teach us big lessons about patience and learning English. Imagine standing in front of the mirror, repeating a simple English sentence again and again, yet still tripping over it as if your tongue suddenly went on strike. You ask yourself, maybe I'm just not cut out for languages? And the thought of giving up starts creeping in. That's a moment many people know too well, just like when you grow attached to something small in life, and suddenly it's gone. I in a quiet neighborhood in Copenhagen. I had an experience just like that. Nothing dramatic, just a neighbor's cat that used to stop by my house. It never spoke a word, of course, but every morning it felt like a little companion that made the day less empty. Until one morning, it didn't show up. Suddenly, the house felt so silent that even the ticking clock on the wall became unbearable. Your brain works in strange ways. It can panic over a missing cat, or over an irregular verb you just can't memorize. But neuroscience shows this clearly. The brain is wired to cling to habits. When even a small piece of routine disappears, it reacts as if a piece of safety has been stolen. And that's when you face two choices: quit, or learn to be patient. The story of the missing cat is not just about a four-legged creature. It's a living metaphor for your English journey, the confusion, the setbacks, and the unexpected return of motivation. Because sometimes, small losses unlock big lessons that no textbook will ever teach you. Morning in Copenhagen. Mornings in Copenhagen have a rhythm that makes you want to get up early and pull the blanket over your head at the same time. Picture this: soft northern sunlight sneaks through the window, not too bright but just enough to gently light up the room. Outside, the sound of bicycle chains clicking drifts down the cobblestone street, while the smell of freshly roasted coffee from the corner cafe slowly mixes into the crisp air. You might think, what's so special about just another morning? But it's these repeating details that your brain clings to for stability. Scientists call this ritual stability, the comfort found in tiny daily habits. Taking a sip of coffee, hearing sparrows chirp on the balcony, or even just watching a red bus roll past the square, all of it tells your brain everything is in its place. And in that atmosphere, English practice sneaks in naturally. You grab a small notebook and jot down a few short sentences. Maybe the grammar is wrong, maybe the pronunciation isn't perfect, but just like Copenhagen mornings, slow, steady, repetitive, that's the foundation that teaches your brain, this is what we do every day. We don't quit. Neuroscience even shows that the brain processes habit loops like trails in a forest. Each time you practice, you press your foot down on that trail, making it clearer. Skip a day, and the weeds start to grow back. But keep walking, patiently, and the path becomes second nature, just like the way Copenhagen wakes up, not loud, not rushed, but certain. Your English learning can begin with tiny, steady steps, until one day you realize you've gone much further than you thought. The cat appears. There's always that one detail in a neighborhood that feels like the soul of the place. For me, it wasn't the smell of coffee or the bikes zipping by. It was the neighbor's cat. A fluffy gray fellow with a tail that looked like a feather duster and the arrogance of a king. Every morning, like clockwork, he'd appear at my door, stretch as if he owned the whole block, and meow for attention. Here's the thing, that cat didn't do anything extraordinary. He didn't juggle, he didn't fetch the newspaper, he just showed up. Yet, somehow, that simple act of showing up made mornings less empty. Neuroscientists say that even small, predictable events release tiny doses of dopamine, the brain's feel-good chemical. So yes, petting a cat can literally trick your brain into thinking life is on track. And weirdly enough, that's not so different from practicing English. You don't need to master Shakespeare or recite speeches from TED Talks on day one. You just need to show up. 10 minutes of reading aloud, 5 minutes of listening slowly, 2 sentences spoken out loud. That's your version of the cat at the door. Small, predictable, and powerful, the funny part? I once caught myself talking to the cat in English. "Good morning, sir," I'd mumble while scratching his head. He obviously didn't care, but my brain did. It heard the words, processed the rhythm, and tucked the habit away for later. That's how sneaky learning works. It hides inside the smallest, fluffiest routines. So yes, sometimes progress doesn't purr. It just quietly waits at your door, reminding you that consistency beats brilliance. Daily English struggles. Let's be honest. Practicing English can feel like chasing after a shadow that keeps slipping through your fingers. You sit down with your notebook, determined to sound smarter than yesterday, and suddenly your tongue decides it's allergic to the word through. The th comes out as s, then as t, then as a weird hiss that even a snake would be embarrassed by. It's exactly like when I first tried to befriend the neighbor's cat. He'd sit outside, tail flicking, eyes narrowed like a judge at a talent show. I reached out my hand, all gentle and kind, and what did he do? He turned away and licked his paw. Rejection. Brutal, elegant, feline rejection. That's what English feels like on some days. No matter how kind your effort, it walks away and ignores you. But here's the psychological twist. Your brain actually grows stronger through these awkward failures. Cognitive scientists call it desirable difficulty. It means your mistakes aren't proof you're bad at English. They're proof you're building deeper pathways. When you mispronounce thought for the 50th time, your neurons are basically saying, "Fine, we'll finally carve a shortcut here so you stop embarrassing us." The trick, just like with the cat, is patience. I didn't quit trying. Day after day, I sat on the porch, spoke softly, offered a hand, and eventually, he rubbed his face against my fingers. Learning English works the same way. Keep showing up, keep stumbling, keep sounding ridiculous. One day, without even noticing, you'll nail that sentence smoothly, and your brain will rub against your efforts like, see? Told you we'd get there. So, when English scratches you with its claws, remember, it's not rejection. It's just part of taming the wild creature of language. The cat disappears. One morning, the door was quiet. No scratching. No meowing. Just silence so thick you could almost hear it breathing. I waited. I peeked out. Nothing. The cat, the little king of the street, was gone. And suddenly, the whole rhythm of my day felt broken, like a song with the chorus missing. It's strange how quickly the brain gets attached to something so small. A cat that wasn't even mine managed to stitch himself into my routine. Neuroscientists explain this with dopamine prediction error. When the brain expects a reward, like the joy of petting a cat, and doesn't get it, it panics. That's why the silence felt so heavy. The habit was broken, and my brain started sulking. If you've ever skipped practicing English for a few days, you know that exact ache. At first, it feels like freedom, no practice today, finally. But then guilt tiptoes in. And when you try to start again, the momentum is gone. The sentences feel clumsy, the listening feels harder, and your brain throws a tantrum. Why bother? You've lost it. That's the thing about both cats and English. Their absence screams louder than their presence. You don't realize how much they shaped your day until they're missing. And in that quiet gap, doubt sneaks in. Maybe the cat found a better porch. Maybe I'll never speak English fluently. Maybe it was foolish to care this much in the first place. But here's the hidden truth. Loss, even a small one, is often the invitation to grow. Sometimes it takes a missing cat to make you notice the size of the hole it left behind. Searching and waiting. The next few mornings turned into a routine of disappointment. I'd open the door, half expecting to see a gray tail flicking in the air, but the porch stayed empty. I even walked around the block, pretending I was just taking a stroll, but really scanning every corner like a detective in a bad TV show. No luck. The cat was gone, and all I had was the waiting. Waiting does strange things to your brain. Psychologists call it temporal uncertainty. When you don't know if or when something will happen, your brain burns extra energy, constantly checking for updates. That's why waiting for a text message feels like torture. It's also why my mornings became a loop of hope, disappointment, and reluctant patience. Learning English often feels exactly like this. You search for progress, straining to hear yourself sounding fluent, waiting for that magical day when subtitles are no longer necessary. And when nothing changes quickly, it feels like you're just walking circles around the block. But here's the secret: patience is not passive. Every awkward sentence you say, every clumsy paragraph you write, is like leaving out a bowl of food for the cat. You might not see results right away, but you're building the conditions for progress to come back. I even started practicing English while waiting on the porch. I'd whisper phrases, repeat vocabulary, and sometimes narrate my cat hunt like a ridiculous documentary. And here we see the human, desperately scanning the bushes, hoping to spot the elusive gray beast. Did I sound silly? Absolutely. Did my brain care? No. It was busy learning, because waiting, when paired with effort, is never wasted time. It's a quiet investment. Lessons in loss. It's funny how the smallest losses can feel huge. A missing cat isn't a tragedy, yet it carved out a hollow space in my mornings. Psychologists say humans are wired with loss aversion. The sting of losing something is twice as powerful as the joy of gaining it. That's why losing a single sock feels like betrayal, and forgetting one English word can ruin your confidence for a whole day. But here's the hidden gift: small losses are like rehearsals for bigger ones. They teach you how to sit with discomfort without letting it swallow you whole. When the cat disappeared, I learned to fill the silence differently, with reading, with writing, with awkward English sentences that no cat cared to hear. The loss forced me to create a new rhythm instead of waiting forever for the old one to return. Think about English practice. You lose, progress all the time. A word you knew yesterday vanishes today. A phrase you nailed last week sounds wrong now. Your brain panics. It's gone. You're failing. But neuroscience shows that forgetting is actually a tool. It makes relearning stronger, like lifting a heavier weight after resting. Each time you lose a word, you're giving your brain the chance to reinforce it deeper. So yes, the missing cat was frustrating. But it also whispered a quiet lesson: loss doesn't mean the end. It means the chance to grow new habits, new resilience, new pathways. And if you can learn that from a furry neighbor, you can definitely learn it from the stubborn chaos of English. Sometimes, the lessons that stick the deepest are the ones delivered by absence. The cat returns. And then, just when I'd almost accepted the silence, there he was. One chilly morning, I opened the door, and the gray king strutted back like nothing had happened. No apology, no explanation, just a lazy stretch on the doorstep as if to say, "What? You worried?" My brain, however, threw a party. Relief, joy, a ridiculous urge to cry over a creature who didn't even know my name. This is how the brain works. When something precious disappears and then returns, dopamine floods the system at double the strength. Scientists call it the contrast effect. The joy is sharper precisely because of the loss before it. That's why a familiar face at the airport can make you weep, or why mastering a word you kept butchering feels like winning a gold medal. The cat's return wasn't just comforting, it reframed the absence. Suddenly, those silent mornings didn't feel wasted. They were the backdrop that made this moment so satisfying. The same happens with English. Those awkward weeks when you think, "I'm not improving," are not useless. They are the silence that makes progress feel explosive when it finally arrives. I bent down, scratched the cat's head, and whispered, "Where have you been?" He blinked at me, unimpressed, then curled up like he owned the porch again. Typical. But inside, I realized something. Progress doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It slips back quietly, stretches, and reminds you that patience was worth it. Sometimes the most ordinary return feels like a miracle. Connecting the dots. The cat's comeback wasn't just a personal victory. It was a blueprint for language learning. Think about it, every time you practice English, you're basically standing at the door, waiting for progress to show up. Some days, it comes right on time. You understand a podcast, you pronounce a word correctly, and life feels good. Other days, it's a no-show, and you're left staring at silence. But here's the twist. Just because you don't see progress doesn't mean it's not happening. Neuroscience calls this latent learning. Your brain quietly builds connections in the background, even when you feel stuck. That's why, after weeks of frustration, you suddenly blurt out a perfect sentence without thinking. It feels like magic, but really, it's just the cat finally strolling back after hiding under the neighbor's porch. The truth is, English, like that cat, isn't loyal to your timeline. It won't arrive because you beg or because you threaten to quit. It shows up when you've built the conditions, steady practice, repeated exposure, and the patience to keep the door open. The waiting is part of the process, not a punishment. When I realized this, the missing days stopped feeling like failures. They became proof that I was still willing to wait, still showing up, still leaving the door cracked open. And eventually, progress padded back into my life, tail high, as if it had never left. So yes, chasing English can feel like chasing a cat. But the trick isn't chasing harder, it's staying patient long enough to let it return on its own. Closing insight. Standing there with the cat purring on my porch, I realized something deeper than just relief. Small losses prepare us for big lessons. Losing a furry neighbor for a few days taught me patience, resilience, and the art of showing up even when nothing seems to happen. And isn't that the exact same journey with English? You'll lose words. You'll lose confidence. You'll lose that rush of motivation you had on day one. But those losses aren't dead ends, they're training grounds. Neuroscience backs this up with the concept of neuroplasticity. Every struggle, every setback, is your brain literally rewiring itself to come back stronger. The absence, the silence, the mistakes, they're not failures. They're part of the growth recipe. So when the cat returned, I didn't just get my morning companion back. I got a reminder that waiting pays off, that silence has meaning, and that patience always wins in the end. And if a missing cat can teach that, imagine what sticking with English can unlock for you. The story isn't really about the cat. It's about you, your persistence, and the lessons hidden in every tiny loss. Because one day, the progress you thought had abandoned you will show up again, quietly, naturally, like a gray cat stretching in the morning sun. And that's the end of today's story. Remember, small losses can shape great lessons if you stay patient. Keep practicing English every day, even when it feels slow. If this video inspired you, please like, share, and subscribe for more.